files. Memes for show. Okay, I've now officially got an epic number of files on here. That should be worthwhile. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Thank you. If you were here tuning in or you're just waiting for me to start up the show, I'm getting it rolling. I'm trying here. Live streaming. We are live. We are barely live. We've been alive for 50 minutes, seconds rather. Yay. We've got an audience of 0 at the moment. Okay. Hello, 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 hello. Hello. Is there anybody out there? No, not at the moment. Let me get some coffee noises. Coffee-tivity. What I'd like to have is like an arcade background. You know? Let's see if I can't find something. Let's see. Coffee-tivity. Contact support, cafe, library, ambient sounds, arcade. Arcade ambiance. Download. Well, that's nice, but I don't want to kick open BitTorrent just to... Ah! Ah! That's not quite the ambiance I was looking for. Wow, that's old school. Not quite what I'm looking for either, though. But it's out there. It's out there somewhere. Ah. Well, if you're just going to be rude. Okay. I'm looking for the... here we go. Hello? Is anybody out there? Hello? Who's there? We've got two people watching. We've got two people watching. Step forward and be identified. Hello? You know, for some reason, I can't figure out how to clear out the chat window of previous chat. There's got to be a way to do that. Let's see here. Enable live chat, automatically block spam messages. Okay. Chat. I don't know. For some reason, I can't figure out how to clear the window. Nope. Not going to tell me. Woof. Oh, beg your pardon. Oof. Oh. The taste of pepperoni the second time around. Hello. Wasn't here last night. Had to. It was getting up about 4:30, and I looked over and I realized, oh yeah, there are a couple of things I needed to get. I'd forgotten to pick them up at the store on my last trip out. Particularly ink cartridges for my printer to print out a list. I had to print out anything. I need a printer list. Oh, I'm sitting here making a to-do list. Things I've got to do. I've got to. Let's see. I've got to go to the library. I've still got to do all that stuff involved with the deed of trust. I hate that crap. I mean, more shenanigans. It used all the folder roll and shenanigans you have to go through just to sell something from one person to the next. A piece of land, a house, a trailer, a car, a box of stuff from your attic, anything. The government's got to be right in there, just. That's right. The government's involvement in commerce kind of bears a lot of resemblance to that one kid's involvement in baking a pie on the movie American Pie, with the same horrifying results. Uh, if you get that reference, my condolences. Uh, Updated some software. Let's see, I still gotta. Let's see. Text. What's I got the draw thing, a lower third, a chroma key. I have no idea what chroma key does. What does chroma key do? Is there a chroma key and how do I use it? I don't know. The noise in the background is Coffeetivity. It's a app. It plays ambient cafe sounds. It's got like morning murmur, lunchtime lounge, university undertones, Paris, Paradise, Brazil Bistro, and Texas Tea House. And I've listened to all of them. You can't really tell the difference. Just, yeah. Anyway. Oh, I've got an audio playlist on this Minicam. I could probably pop some audio in there if I had some audio sounds. Of course, I don't know. I haven't. Isn't it wonderful to live in a world where everything is owned by some godforsaken faceless corporation? The music you listen to, sound files. You can't even play a commercial without some lawyer climbing up your rear end. There are companies out there. There are companies they have an entire branch of lawyers and legals. Their entire job is to write out descriptions of inventions and then patent them. And then they sit and wait for somebody to invent what they just described. You see, that started after changes in the patent process. You don't even have to. It used to be you had to submit a working prototype or a blueprint of a working prototype, at least, of your invention. But they changed that rule, and lawyers have been diving through that loophole like cliff divers, diving into that open cavern that you see on YouTube, into the hidden jungle. It's just it's terrible because that's what they do. They just, their whole job is to sit around coming up with clever ideas or really short elevator pitches for inventions. They don't have to create them. They don't even have to. They don't even have to be feasible. They just have to describe them real well. You know, make a real good elevator pitch, mail it to the patent office, and the patent then belongs to their company. And then the company sits there and waits for some poor schlub to invent the thing. Some poor guy working out of his garage invents the Ronco turnip twaddler, and boom, the company lands on him with their lawyers, and first of all they sue him, and then they steal the invention. You know, my faith is tested by many things. My faith in heaven and in God and in justice, basic goodness and decency, are tested by the fact that certain people walk the streets daily without getting incinerated by repeated strikes by bolts of lightning. Can you think of anything more? That's just that is probably the most horrible thing I've ever heard of. I've heard a lot of horrible things. It's uniquely horrible in its own way. You know, some smart asshole out there goes, "Well, what about the Holocaust?" Look, I've said this before. You know, you point out some terrible thing like these patent trolls. That's what they're called, patent trolls, because they lurk under the bridge and wait for the billy goat to cross, basically. And then they jump out and say, you know, pay us a toll or we'll eat you. You pay them the toll and then they eat you anyway. That's why these guys are called patent trolls. Slightly different creature from the internet troll. But, you know, you point out this is just absolutely horrible. It's just absolutely low and wicked. But somebody else will point out, you know, that there are other horrible things going on in the world that are supposedly objectively, or at least subjectively, far worse. But I've said this before. All the worst things in the world are petty. All injustices, all cruelties, all evils, in the end, are petty. They're horrible cruelties done by small people for reasons so pointless and puny that they're not worth mentioning at all. Stupid and venal, and people will do the most absolutely appalling things. Just it's you know, the atrocities of tyrants and despots are rooted in the same mealy, puny, sniveling cruelty of a wicked child. The pettiness of it. Do you get what I'm saying? It is unfair to downplay one person's injustice as less than another. I submit to you that God considers all, one of the things I was always taught as a child was that God doesn't distinguish between little white lies and great big ones. He doesn't distinguish between little sins and big sins. They're all the same. In the Old Testament law, certain things were punished more severely than others, but in the end, it's in God's eyes, it's all the same. I think we should think in the same fashion that that injustices are not small and great. They're injustice. Some will demand greater response or command more urgency, but they're all equally unjust. A man who's cheated out of a day's bread has been no less abused than somebody who suffers. It's all petty and cruel, and it all should be opposed. And it is callous to suggest that another person's misery is meaningless because it isn't as vast and epic as the suffering of somebody else who you saw on the news last night. Reason people say things like that is because they don't want to do anything. The only reason somebody looks at an injustice and says, "Oh, that's not important," if it is a genuine injustice, it matters. And we look at it from the wrong end of the stick. It's not saying that all evils are equally great and terrible. What I'm saying is that all evils are equally small. Mm. That's half the problem, is that all these people that want to be out and be activists. Think about it. All the people in the world who go out and they march in these parades and they do these protests and join these big clubs and groups and wave signs and wear pins and do all this other loud noisy stuff. Now they want to fight what they see as an injustice or a right or wrong. And that's a good motivation. That is a good uh, thing to want to do to want to right something that is wrong. The problem is that everybody wants to do the big things. Visualize world peace kind of stuff, you know? But very few people, all these people who are shouting for, no justice, no peace, won't stop. Won't stop uh, to bandage a crying child's knee. They're so big. They're so big about saving the whales, but they won't, help a little kid who's being bullied in their front yard. Uh, they'll rant and rave about the latest political issue, but they won't report somebody who's a coworker who's shortchanging customers. We want to battle great injustice. We don't realize that it's all the injustice, all the injustice in the world. These social justice warriors, they want to solve problems for entire classes of people. We want to fight for the rights of all womankind. Spell it with 2 Y's, please. Thank you very much. When's the last time you saw one of them help a little old lady across the street? Or stop a neighborhood punk from toilet papering some little old lady's house? That kind of thing. When's the last time you saw them help somebody who was standing right there? All the great injustices in the world, they're just little rights and wrongs. Seen from with a wide-angle lens. Oh, indeed. Wrongs and rights needing to be. Look, the feminists, they have legitimate causes, but they don't want to address them. They don't want to address the real oppression of women going on, right, a quarter of a way around the globe. They don't want to. They're out there tormenting Western men for every they'll trump up every imaginary slight and go on a campaign to torment Western men. Right down the street will be a Muslim man who does an honor killing of his daughter. Where's their justice then? Justice is not social. It's individual. As Ayn Rand put it, you trumpet the cause of minorities. Good for you, great. The individual is the smallest minority on the planet. If you are not fighting for the rights of the individual, you are not fighting for minority rights at all. The biggest flaw, side issue, the side topic, libertarians and objectivists. Objectivists get all hoity-toity and say that libertarians have nothing in common with them. I'm like, what? But anyway, libertarians and objectivists, as movements, by and large, the reason objectivism and libertarianism fail is because they want a just system, but they don't want a judge. They want us to live by the rule of law, but they don't want the ultimate legislator. You talk to the Libertarian Party about the influence of the church on society, and their idea of a utopia is a place where you can't see any church steeples. Because, if they have their religion, they keep it to themselves. If you have faith in God, if you are a Christian and you are keeping it to you, you're not living the Christian faith at all. If you're keeping your religion to yourself, if you're entirely keeping your religion to yourself, you're not living it. A religion is supposed to be about your values, what you believe right and wrong. Things that you hold as absolute cosmic truths. If you say, I have this religion that has, it has all these absolute values and morals and laws, and these things I believe to be as truthful, and I believe them to be as fundamental to the nature of the universe as the building blocks of the atom. And then you don't, and you say, and then they ask you, have you been telling other people about it? No, I don't want to bother people with that. I'll keep it to myself. That's not a religion. That's a privately performed superstitious ritual. And especially Christians of any other faith, Christianity, which is the gospel and the truth. Thank you very much. One of its fundamental properties is proselytizing. We are told it's a fundamental article of our faith that we're supposed to go out and tell other people the salvation message. We can't live it and keep it to ourselves. And God help you if you are ever in a society where the Christians decide to keep their religion to themselves. Fine. Would you like to live into? All these people out there say, "Keep your religion to yourself, you nasty Christian, you." Fine, great. Kiss the Salvation Army goodbye. Congratulations, there's no Salvation Army. Most of the soup kitchens gone. Most of the homeless shelters gone. In fact, nearly all of them. You don't see atheists building soup kitchens. You see them making bread lines. Anywhere you put anywhere you put the atheists in charge, you'll have bread lines and people starving to death in the street. Hey, no problem. But if you want to see them go out there and help somebody, oh no, you're not going to see that. You can kiss most of the hospitals in the world goodbye, too. Medical missionaries, gone. You can kiss half the people in the third world probably owe their lives to the worker Christians who brought the gospel along with things like modern hygiene, agriculture, and medicine out to them. You don't want to live in a world where Christians keep their faith to themselves. I want to ask the evolution. I want to ask these atheists: will you keep your religion to yourself? No, you'll never see an atheist keep their faith to themselves. They're too busy taking over the schools, turning them into the First Church of Charles Darwin. Constant source of annoyance. The evolution, Darwinism, in less than half a century went from an unproven, untestable hypothesis held in controversy by rational skeptics to being de facto not only proven quote unquote science, but the only acceptable scientific philosophy. The only two answers allowed. If this is anti-science. A real scientific hypothesis has if this, then true. If that, then false. All evolutionary works under the same principle. Either it confirms evolution or it confirms evolution. There is no alternative. There is no negative answer. It's like a pregnancy test where it already comes out with the plus etched into the side. You're either pregnant or you're pregnant. But what if I'm not pregnant? Well, then you're pregnant. What if I'm not pregnant? Well, then you obviously aren't using the proper test. They set up their entire little social circle on a heads you lose, tails I win formula for their so-called scientific theories, and they call that science. That is the exact opposite of what science is. Science is where you come up with a hypothesis and try to disprove it by experimentation. Evolution is where you go in and you've already decided what the result is going to be, regardless. And you interpret every result so that it agrees with that foregone conclusion. Old talking. This is old news. This is stuff I've repeated over and over before. It is nothing you haven't heard before, and it is nothing they have not heard before, and it is saying nothing that will even make them waver for a second in their absolute conviction of their intellectual correctness and superiority over anybody so slope-browed as to doubt them. Excuse me, I'm a little. Let's see here. How. The epic question: what is it that enables people to change their mind? What is it that cuts through people's unbelief? If I knew, if anybody knew, message would take off and wouldn't stop. Mm. So I'm getting a little tired. You'll have to excuse me. dozing off again. Very low energy kind of moment there. Just give me a second. Get a little caffeine in me. Just a moment. Okay, Remdog, what were you saying about John Mackey, founder of Whole Foods? What did he say? What was it? You were saying something about John Mackey? I'll say this much. It has to be said. We get reports back from people out in the mission fields in like Africa and India, and all over the globe. They, out in these other countries, they thousands of conversions. Uh, People are still coming forward. People are still hearing the gospel and accepting it. Even for all the enmity it has in some of the supposedly more enlightened countries. Uh, Ordered a pizza and some soda, and I should know better by now. When I finish eat the pizza, and now got a tummy ache, a little heartburn, a little indigestion. What were you saying? Yeah. My energy will bounce back in a minute. Right now, I'm just going through that point of the night. I don't think it's so much prosperity. There's lots of reasons given it. People like to blame. People like to blame people, the people, they like to claim that poor countries, people will convert faster. In rich countries, they go, oh, it's because easier for a rich man to go through a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter. No, 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 no. No. The point of that verse wasn't, yes, people who are in love with the world or in love with their wealth. Uh, they are going to tend to be in love with the world. They're not going to be easy to convince. But this was not. That passage was more about the fact that in their in at that time, in the Hebrew culture, in Jewish culture, and with fairly good reason, in Jewish culture, rich people were regarded as being righteous. They regarded being wealthy as a sign of righteousness. Much in the same way that it's the exact inverse in Western America. In America right now, they consider the fact that you're rich to be proof that you're a scumbag. But in that culture, in that time, the Hebrews, they looked back on their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, Israel, the great forefathers of the church of the Hebrew people, rather. They tended to be incredibly prosperous because God blessed them. And so it was natural for them to assume that somebody who had a Jewish man who had great wealth, they were going to assume that he was very, very righteous and that he had been heavily blessed by God. Jesus wasn't saying that Jesus wasn't just saying that their wealth made them cold-hearted to God. Jesus was saying that even the seemingly righteous cannot get into heaven under their own power. Because the next thing that these his followers were standing around when he said, rich man, eye of the needle, and the whole thing, and they looked at him astonished and dismayed. They said, well, who can get into heaven then? Who can be part of heaven's kingdom if the prosperous who have been blessed by God are not righteous enough? And he went on and made the real point of his sermon. With man it is impossible. With God all things are possible. We're not saved by our wealth. We're not saved by our poverty either. We're not saved by being charitable. We're not saved by being good. We're not saved because we are more righteous than the person next to us. We are not saved for being more faithful or more pious or more generous or for being austere and being humble. We're not saved for any of those reasons. We are saved because we came to God and we said, I am a sinner. I can do nothing to save myself. My way is wrong. I accept you as Savior. That's the only reason we get saved. And even the faith to do that comes from Christ. Comes from God Almighty. Not of works, lest any man should boast. Jesus has been served by devout, faithful men who were as poor as church mice. He's also been served by princes and kings and wise men to whom kings supplicated. I think that was the whole point. That was the whole point behind first the shepherds coming to Jesus on the night of his birth, and then later the wise men of the East traveling all that way just to greet him and worship him, to show it was the rich and the poor that needed him. There's no piety to be found in poverty. The only thing you get out of being poverty is poor. I really love it when you hear these older folks talking about, oh, when I was a little boy, a couple of 70-year-old couple in my father's church around one Christmas time, they started talking about how spoiled children are these days because they get so many gifts. And the little old lady was, oh, when I was a little girl, all we got for Christmas was an orange and a candy cane in a stocking. And we were happy to get it. And if you'd ever seen a Sears catalog, except to wipe your behind with, you you would have had a lot of things to covet too. One lady, she said that she had an accident in Amish country. Went off in a ditch, basically got stuck in the mud. You know, and all those little Amish kids line up on the fence, laughing and jeering at her. She said, you thought they'd all be nice, little pious little. They're just mean little snakes, just like everywhere else. Please, Jesus, save us from ourselves. Save us from self-righteousness. Save us from all the forms of self-righteousness. You ever heard this one? My dad beats this one to death. I love my father, and I do respect him a great deal, but there are things in my doddering 4 decades I've come to question sorely about some of the things he teaches as a pastor. He loves to pull out that passage about cause not the weaker brethren to stumble. It's always about people listening to rock and roll music or dancing or drinking alcoholic beverages. But I've managed to resist. When I was younger, I didn't say it because I didn't want to get smacked. But you can offend the weaker brethren, cause them to stumble. Do nothing that causes the weaker brethren to stumble. And I've been so tempted to ask him, you mean like legalism and self-righteousness? Paul said, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Don't quibble over these foolish things. If you're sitting at a table and they don't eat of a certain meat because they believe, when they were talking about eating of certain meats, it was a reference to the shambles. The pagan priests, they did their sacrifices, and once the meat was, once the offering was done, they'd take their share, and the leftovers would be sold in the shambles. And there were some Christians in the young church that were being offended by this because the meat was cheaper, and and there were Christians who were going there and buying it because it was more affordable. And there were other Christians standing there going, that was sacrificed to a pagan god. And Paul said, he was talking to the older men. You and I are both aware that these pagan gods are nothing but statues. And there's no real wickedness behind, it's not like they've been marinated in evil before they served it. But, spare your brother in this. Don't. But on the flip side, In other passages, he talked about Christians who were coming to these new Christians. Oh, say if you're going to be a Christian, you need to be circumcised, and you need to do this, and you need to do that, and you need to do. He said, "Why are you putting a yoke around your brethren's neck that the forefathers could not even bear?" I think the message cuts both ways. Do not cause the weaker brethren to stumble, but don't assume that you're the stronger brother. is a good bit of advice. We assume that because I know better. I just don't I don't partake of this and this and this and this, and we walk around with our nose stuck up in the air. Oh well, I don't dance. I don't dance because I'm so pious. And it has nothing to do with being pious. You're supposed to be being compassionate to those who aren't mature enough to realize that it's a triviality. George MacDonald observed that poverty protects men from some temptations that come with wealth. Horse apples. There's no sin there is no sin you can commit with $1 billion that you can't commit with none. But getting back to the point. We forget that undeserved self-righteousness can be just as offensive. If somebody says, I don't see anything wrong with it, you go to the Bible, and if there isn't anything wrong with it, get the stick out of your butt. The Pharisees went around making up new rules for everything under the sun and calling it God's law. I wonder what God's going to have to say to all of us. Christians in America do not drink alcohol, generally speaking, because the demon rum, But why is it we suddenly develop amnesia about the fact that Jesus provided the wine for a wedding, and it was and it wasn't cheap watered down stuff either. The steward tasted the stuff and said it was the best stuff to come out. Use a little wine for thy stomach's sake. The Bible, in other passages, speaks of wine as being an abundance of wine as being a sign of the blessings of God on a nation, and so on and so forth. It says the passages that speak about wine as a mocker and strong drink as raised. It's talking about drunkenness. It also says if you're a man given too much appetite, put a knife to your throat. I don't see too many Baptists giving up their casserole dishes for that one. It's amazing, they selectively literal-minded, as it were. Oh no, I had a second help at a pecan pie. Give me that knife. When you read the Bible, people forget that the Bible is a collection of letters, particularly the New Testament. The New Testament is a collection of letters from the church fathers to the various churches scattered around the Mediterranean, illuminating on the gospel and on the story of Jesus' ministry and his crucifixion and resurrection. detailing the stories of the events of the lives of the apostles, detailing prophecies of times yet to come. But they were also letters to actual people. The people that wrote these letters out weren't standing out up on a pulpit in an auditorium dictating them into empty air. They were talking to actual people, to their circumstances, to their condition, to their lifestyle, to where they lived, to the culture they lived in. This is why I repeat this. My dad always says when you read these things, you should be aware of who they're being written by, who they're being written to, when they were written, where they were written, why they were written. I prefer the simpler, the shorter version: context and culture. God will bless. God will put us through trials to His benefit. What you're saying, or McDonald's quote, is that some will grow up better in faith and adversity than in prosperity. That's for God to decide. That's for God to decide. But when we go around, we see a Christian prosper, and we all just whispering up our sleeves about how he's going to, be a son of the devil now. Because everybody knows money is the root of all evil, blah, blah, blah. I remember being told in one sermon, they told the story of a Christian couple. Somehow they were given out of the blue, I forget, some sort of sweepstakes or something. They were given something like several $1,000,000, and they got together and they got very, very pious and decided, let's give it all away, and they gave it all away. Yes, I know that the actual verse says the love of money is the root of all evil. Actually, another translation is the love of money is a root of a great many evils. Depends, again, translation. But as I was saying, this couple, God literally plunked enough money into their laps so they could do anything. And they gave it all away. And the preachers, oh, how glorious and noble, and and how godly, they held nothing back, and so on and so forth. And if they had been frugal and invested the money and stewarded it carefully, they could have funded everything that they did and more for the rest of their lives. But nobody would have sung their praises for it. The modern church has a very awkward relationship with wealth, particularly other people's money. Of course, I'm yet to see anybody that doesn't have an awkward relationship with money. How did that saying go? If you earn it, you're a workaholic. If you invest it, you're a fat cat. If you spend it, you're a wastrel. If you save it, you're a miser. And if you give it to your children, you're spoiling them and guaranteeing they won't accomplish anything. You know. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, and all thy strength, and thy neighbor as thyself. The greatest commandment. You will note loving your neighbor is put on the same tier as loving God. All run together. And that you are supposed to love your neighbor the same as you love yourself. Not in, no. This is for the nihilists in the crowd, for the self uh, abusers and immolators, the masochistic altruists. Love them as yourself, not instead of. I am no theologian. I'd have no business being a preacher, I don't think. Too many problems, too many issues, and too many sins and shortcomings in my own life. So, pulpit? Heck no. If anything I have said is of any value, then may God stand witness over it. And may God prevent any untrue or distorted thing I have said to travel no further than this than it has. Lay not your treasures up in this earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and thieves break in and steal. Can't remember the full of the passage of it. Lay your treasures up in heaven. Put your riches, put your wealth where it will last. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Be ye kind one to another. Tender-hearted, forgiving one another. That's the one thing whenever I say the Lord's Prayer, I add this. When it comes to the part where it says, "Forgive us as we forgive our debtors," forgive our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. I always add, and help me to forgive those who trespass against me. Because I'm not always mindful of that, and I may hold a grudge against somebody I no longer remember. there are people out there I've never even met I'm angry at. I mean, I have to say, God help me forgive people like Obama, for instance. I make a point of taking time just to realize how badly that man has messed up his own life, his own soul, and to maybe pity him just a little bit. To try and pity those people who are out there tearing this country apart, the homosexuals and their community. Help me to forgive them for the excesses and the transgressions they afflict upon us. I mean, what these people do. There was a time where some of the things these people do would have gotten them killed in public by an enraged community. I mean, literally, I've seen these people out there. There's photographs of them walking down Main Street buck naked in front of children. This would have been enough to get you shot in one day and age. Someday they are going to push too far, and the results are going to be incredibly ugly. No, this is not a threat. This is a grim prediction. I try to pray for God to turn the hearts of those wicked men in ISIS. Imagine what waits for them in hell. After all the evil that they have done against God's children. This is one thing that most people don't realize, is that when Jesus said, "Woe unto any man that caused one of these little ones to take offense," remember, this was during the days of Rome, where it was perfectly acceptable to abandon a baby in a ditch to die if you didn't want it. Dumpster babies, nothing new. You could kill, there were no rights protecting children. For the Son of God to say, woe unto anyone who harms these children, this was a fundamental this was a sea change. This was a dramatic switch from the cultural norm. This was why it was so flabbergasting. This is one of the many reasons Christianity was so flabbergasting to the pagans of Rome, to the Gentiles. You have to imagine the idea of a God coming down and humbling himself as a mortal. Not merely just disguising himself so he could go around playing tricks like like Hermes or uh, or Zeus reportedly did, but to live as a poor man, to speak of treating women and children with respect as if they were precious rather than a disposable commodity. The things this is one of the things that slows up the teaching of the Bible, is that people don't get just how different that era was, and just how many of the values we take for granted today. Even Christians get some shocking surprises when they learn about the history of that time, about the culture of that time. You mean they'd really do that? They'd really do this? They'd actually, yeah, they would, and they did all the time. This is the reason, I remember when I was young, they told us about how the Bible said that parents could have their children stoned for disobedience. Talk about a horribly taught lesson. That has to be one of the worst. One of the examples of the worst theological, just terrible education. Not because it wasn't true, but because the presentation, they got it all wrong. You have to first of all, you had to look over it. You have to remember. Yes, the Bible said that the parents. First of all, the Bible said that the parents had to bring their child before the elders of their tribe and testify that these people, this child is a disobedient monster. We can do nothing with him. And the elders had to agree. And then the child was to be stoned. And we're sitting here in the modern time, oh, that's horrible. That's awful. That's the most horrible thing I've ever heard. You have to remember, these people lived in a time where it was acceptable to sacrifice your own children to an idol. Read up on Moloch sometime. And this happened in every culture. It happened in Greece. It happened in. This is part of the reason that the civilizations, quote unquote, that were in the Valley of Hebron, that were in the land of Israel at the time, were to be wiped out because they were so depraved and evil. Depravity, bestiality, sodomy, cannibalism, human sacrifice, you name it, they did. And without a second thought. And this passage about the parents executing. First of all, it never happened. There is not a single record, not a single one, of anybody ever exercising this law. Literally, never. In all the history of Israel, not once. That's food for thought right there. Second point, this law didn't give them permission to do this. They already had permission in their society, in their culture. In Egypt, wasn't no big thing. Killing your own children was no big thing in any of the cultures that was alive at that time. It didn't give them permission to do it. It required them to go before a court of law before they even thought of it. And again, nobody ever did it. Not in all the thousands of years is there a single record of anybody in Israel exercising that law. Well, what does that tell you about the people of Israel? Something that couldn't be said for any of the other peoples in the surrounding nations who regularly roasted their children alive to Moloch in exchange for the supposed promise of a good harvest. I shudder to imagine whenever the Israeli people turned their backs on God and started living like their neighbors. People who study the Bible. Very few people who study the Bible go to any depths of studying the history of the time period in which the Bible was written, or the people who wrote it, or who it was, or more importantly, who it was written to. And they talk about the Bible permitted slavery. Yeah, well, technically yes, but it forbade kidnapping. You weren't to steal people away and sell them as slaves. In fact, most of slavery was called bondservant. Bond service is what they called it in later times. It was usually done to pay off a debt. It had a strict time limit. There were severe penalties for abusing or neglecting a slave. In fact, if you abused a slave, the slave was to go free. You were expected to provide for them everything they needed: food, clothing, shelter, medical care, everything. And if you did not, the slave was to go free. You were not to sexually assault them in any way. They were to go free if you did. And it goes on down the list. And if after the slave was done with his service, and he looked back and he said, I want to serve, I want to continue being a part of this of your household, he could become a lifetime servant of his own choice. A slave was guaranteed better treatment in the Old Testament than the average wage slave can hope for in our society. Poor research. You want to see some really terrible example of bad research? Look at the average Christmas creche. I mean, it's ridiculous. Christmas, let's start off with first off, Jesus was not born in the middle of winter. He is born in the early spring when the lambing season is, because that is the only time that shepherds would have their flocks out at nighttime. Because at nighttime, usually the shepherds would keep them in a pen. But when the ewes were about to drop their lambs, they would let them out roam freely at night, so that in the open fields, in order to so that the ewes would have room to give birth. And second of all, that manger and that that manger and that stable looked nothing like that. The inn was not like a Holiday Inn where they had the inn would actually be more of a circular structure with an open area in the center, the building all the way around, and lean-tos all the way around the outside, which served as stables for the travelers to keep their donkeys and their camels and all this other stuff in. When the innkeeper said there was no room in the inn, basically that was all he had left. Was a little bit of space left in one of those areas outside, on the outside wall. Yeah, everybody knows that the three wise men. They don't know how many wise men were. They just know there were three gifts. These wise men from the east. Let's put it this way: we three kings of Orient are. If they were kings, they took a demotion, because that particular kind of wise men. These were scholars, sages, astronomers. These were just living archives, and kings came to them asking advice. For these men to travel all that way, it took them several years. So you got to figure they were from a good ways away. For them to come all that way and to kneel down before Jesus in humility. They knew who he was. They knew what he was here for. And they said more than you need to care to know about what they, just what they knew about their ranking in comparison to him. I love how I've joked about this before. You love it. You go look at it at Christmas time. They have these little manger scenes out, and little Jesus lying there in the little crib in the straw, and little halo around his head. I hate to break it to anybody, but there was nothing like a halo around his head. There was nothing to distinguish him visually from any other baby who had just been born. Red, wrinkly, wet, and angry. And I love it. The baby's lying there, And there's Joseph standing there at the end of the crib, standing there with his hands folded, all pious like. And there's Mary. She is kneeling at the other end of the crib. She's just given birth, and she's already up in the classic Catholic piety pose. Ta-da! Head tilt to the side, hands together, all benign. She probably would have beat the crap out of any artist that tried to ask her to pose like that. Okay, now, Mary. Okay, now, Joseph, Mary, let's do this pose. Let's do this family picture together. Okay, the baby's there in the crib. Oh, my. He should have rinsed him off a little bit. Okay, you, Joseph, stand over here. Well, what do you want? Just stand over here at the end of the crib, sir. Okay, yes. Can you hold your hands together like this? Like this. Yes. That's how they pray in, the 14th century. Yes. With the hands folded in the head. And sort of tilt your heads to the side like a puzzled dog. Yeah. There you go. And give it a little Mona Lisa smile. Oh, don't worry. She hasn't been painted yet. Just give us a little smile there. A little all benign. Oh, son. Francine, where's the halo? Just put the light behind his head so it makes a nice head. Yes, that'll work perfectly. Okay, you stay right there. Oh, and Mary. Oh my dear. Oh, can you get up? Okay, here will you get up on your knees here and you just sit in. Okay, punching the cameraman in the face wasn't very nice, dear, but no, we don't want to be doing that now. Now we're trying to make a lovely little religious scene. Just please let go of my nose. No. She would have messed him up. You've seen pictures of women who have just given birth. Some of you have probably been in a hospital and seen one or two of them. Do they look like they're getting ready to pose for a Hallmark card? No. But this is the popular image we have, and I love how Santa Claus will be out there outside the, and right over here the three wise men who don't show up for 5 years. Apparently, they're going to walk that last 100 feet, like one step a year. No. When we talk about Bible stories, this is the reason the message of the faith falters, I think, in our culture, is because for all the ridiculousness in our society, we hate fakes. Or we have a pretense that we hate fakes. We fall for fakes all the time, but we hate being subjected to fakery, and this is fakery. This isn't what happened on that night. Noah's Ark. How do we teach little children about Noah's Ark? We draw a cute little picture of a boat with a giraffe sticking out of the top and a couple of elephants hanging off the side, maybe a monkey at the other end. And it looks like a cute little, the animals are going for a little sailing trip. No. Not even close. We cutesy pootsy-fy things. We present bad caricatures of the most passionate and most important things that have ever happened to the human race. And they look as fake as a Chinese a Rolex, Oh, the classical artists did make beautiful pictures, but they were totally inaccurate. And these portrayals, these inaccurate portrayals, have played into the problems people have of the gut check, if you like, needed when dealing with the real story. They're talking more about in Twitter. So many words with so little thought. They're talking about uh, Cosby. They're calling him a rapist now, and they're saying that he drugged those women. I haven't listened to this. I don't want to get any more depth into. I don't want to get any more in depth into it. I'll point something out. It's been pointed out that back in that time, back in the 70s, popping a couple of roofies was a party favor. Maybe he did it. Maybe he is, a doping up rapist. Or maybe it's just that people using roofies to date rape people has become a new meme. And back in the day, sharing a roofie to loosen up beforehand. I don't know. I'm tired. I've reached a point where I'm tired. I don't want to know anymore. If these women had cared, if these women had really cared about what had happened, they would not have waited 40 years to start this. Here's my question. How much are they suing him for? There you go. How much are they suing him for? Follow the money. I've dealt with women who have actually been raped. Oh, I was so intimidated by him. I decided to wait 4 decades and have 2 children before I decided to say anything. No. We live in a society where the faintest accusation of sexual impropriety means a man's life is over. He will be, all it takes is a complete raving loony off the street can come in and scream, rape! And that man, a total stranger, pointing at a random man in the room, that man's life will end. You're telling me that these women who lived in this society all these years, knowing damn well what would happen to Bill Cosby if they came forward at any time, knowing that all of society would side with them, that the media would side with them, that the courts would side with them, that the lawyers would side with them, that the popular opinion trends would side with them, we're too intimidated by his political power, I suppose. He's a stage comedian. He was a stand-up comedian. He sold Jello pudding pops for a living. You can't tell me he was that intimidating. Come on. This is why. This is why the ancient Hebrews had a bullshit time limit. If a woman did not cry out when the crime took place, society said, forget it, tough. And it also specified if the woman cried out and she was in some place where she couldn't be heard, it was still to be treated the same. But no, if she didn't, immediately, as soon as instantly as possible, go and inform somebody that she had been sexually assaulted, then there was no case. Because women leveling false accusations of rape is nothing new. It makes me want to puke. We live in a society where a woman can accuse a man of rape because he switched positions in the middle of sex. And she didn't like it, so she accused him of rape, and they had to go to court, and he nearly ended up going to jail. And there are men who did go to jail because halfway through the woman decided to change her mind. And there are men who have, morning after rape scream. That's a popular one. They did the stat numbers. They've done the stat runs. The number of false rape accusations, the ones that are confirmed as false, runs as high as 40%. If it's a tenth that, it's an abomination. 20 to 40%, with 20 being the optimistic one. Meanwhile, on the other side of the globe, they just executed a bunch of women for refusing to let a bunch of ISIS soldiers rape them. A woman who cries rape will get stoned to death for allowing herself to be raped. That's Islamic culture. And it's happening in this country too, these honor killings. How many of them were because the woman cried rape? But no, it's Western civilization that has the problem with women. Yeah. We got Muslims living in this country who think it is their God-given right to rape any non-Muslim woman or any Muslim woman who is particularly disobedient. But they're going after Bill frickin' Puddin' Pop Cosby. He's so damn old he needs to take a Viagra the size of his head. Now they're going to go after him. Isn't it interesting that they're going after him right about the same time he started criticizing the African American community for letting its children run rampant? Isn't that an interesting coincidence, too? Am I angry? Do I sound angry? It's because it's totally intentional. Oh, what? Somebody tried to copy his sweat. He had a clothing line, and somebody tried to copy his sweater style or something. Who cares? We live in a crazy society. I'm just barking mad. What's her name? That woman that does all the house, home, make your home up, fancy stuff. Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart. A woman who making place settings shaped like ducks out of napkins and things. They couldn't find, they can't, rapists, murderers, robbers, muggers, thieves, violent, uh, in and out of our legal system on a revolving door. Martha Stewart, federal prison. You know what she went to federal prison for? It's because they decided she was guilty of something, and they kept interrogating her again and again and again and again and again and again and again until she finally made a mistake telling them what she had done. It was a gotcha. They wanted to put Martha Stewart away. They wanted, somebody had a hate boner for her and decided to send her up the river. And so they got her on some sort of trumped up insider trading bullcrap. Martha frickin' Stewart. Meanwhile, O.J. Simpson walks free. That is one fat squirrel. Well, hey, actually, wintertime, they gotta fatten up like that. Little furry butterball. That's one. If being black is such a desired thing that people will go out of their way and even violate laws to do it, doesn't that demand we rethink the oppressed minority status of blacks? Okay, they found another one. They found another one. This one's a guy pretending to be black. They got a photograph of him as a baby, white. That boy a cracker. My favorite meme shows Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg on her show, fixing something and on fixing up a meal or something. Guess which one is the ex-con? And you see, if she'd gotten some of that orange, she'd have painted herself orange and crimped her hair, nobody would have touched her. Can't send an African American woman to prison for that sort of thing. They found seriously. They found another one in the NAACP. Black, a guy. Turns out he's white, passing himself as black. That used to be the plot of comedies. Okay, seriously, they had a movie years ago, back in the '80s. Wasn't a big success. As some popular comedian, he was supposed to be a young guy who couldn't get a scholarship. great grades, and all that. He did good. But he was too rich. He wasn't, he was just wealthy enough that they wouldn't help him out. Which means is that he basically couldn't afford it anyway. And so he takes a bunch of tanning pills, dyes his hair, and passes himself as black. Gets in under the what do they call it? We aren't asking for a handout, just a hand, whatever. And it was supposed to be a comedy. And yet and it reaches a point where he finds out he starts falling in love with this African American, this black girl, and he finds out that she got done out. They only had so many spaces on the the African American scholarship program for that school, and the reason she hadn't liked him very much at the beginning of the movie was because he had bumped her down the ladder off of it. By his application, he bumped her off the ladder for it. And this is the crisis point. He's going around angsting in guilt because he has cheated her out of a scholarship. He cheated her out of a scholarship she would have only gotten because of the color of her skin. And he's supposed to be the scumbag. Try and run a scholarship, the National Aryan, the National Advancement for Aryan Colored Children program or something. A whites only scholarship. See how far that flies. It's racist, it's racist, it's racist. Shut up. There are people out there saying, you can't be racist to white people. This is why I have to get down on my knees every now and then just to confess to God that I've just been festering in anger. Maybe it would be easier if every now and then we saw some proof that actual justice could happen from time to time around here. I don't know. The more I hear, the angrier I get. They say, this doesn't affect you personally. It doesn't have to affect me personally to be angry. That's kind of a shallow person, Somebody who won't care about anything that doesn't affect them personally. Isn't that something they criticize Americans about? You hear about an airplane crash and it doesn't even make it doesn't get above the middle of the paper until they find out an American was on the plane. Then it's, the humanity. They criticize us for caring more about our own people than about complete strangers, But when you start getting angry about injustices that take place that don't affect you directly, or seemingly don't, they get on you for that too. I was unaware I needed somebody's permission to be angered by injustice. I was unaware I wasn't allowed to comment on, you live in a society which is just so divided by race. You're not allowed to comment on anything if you're white. You're not allowed to comment on race issues if you're white. You're not allowed to comment on gender issues if you're male. You're not allowed to comment. You're not allowed to say anything about. You're not allowed to say anything about religious freedom if you're a Christian. they've been trying to sweep the Irish oppression under the rug. How they used to have those signs, "No Irish need apply," and Irishmen were treated terribly in this country. Just about as badly as black people were. And a lot of these scholars are coming out, "Oh, this isn't true. This just highly exaggerated." Blah 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 blah. A teenage girl disproved those papers. She just simply went into the newspaper morgue and pulled up article after article, job searches, basically. She just went back through the papers and printed up all the job ads, the want ads in these old papers that said "No Irish need apply." And she wrote a whole paper on it and sent it in. And remember, what was the name of that fellow that punk tried to jump him, and he shot the kid to in self-defense. What was it? Not Gonzalez. The whole thing with the Arizona iced tea and it was some Mexican guy. He was a Mexican American or Cuban American, I think. Well, one of the two. And he saw this kid, this punk in a hoodie, prowling around through a neighborhood, through the backyards and the back alleys. And he trailed the kid in his car and called the cops. He lost track of the kid, got out of his car to look around, see if he could see where he went, and the kid comes out of nowhere and attacks him, starts bashing his brains out on the pavement, and the guy had no choice. He pulled his gun and killed him. Zimmerman. Isn't it interesting how the more it went on, the whiter Zimmerman got? The instant they found out it was a black kid shot, he stopped being ethnic, and he's a honky. See that evil old honky shot that poor innocent little black boy. Make it sound like he was some little knobby-kneed 12-year-old on his way to the store to buy some candy, The kid in question bought 2 or 3 ingredients for a rather popular drug called Purple Drank. The first 2 ingredients are hard candy, a can of Arizona fruit punch, and a bottle of Robitussin. Those are the first 3 ingredients. He had the first 2. And his behavior indicates that he'd already had a little purple drank. Yeah, white Hispanic. As compared to all the paisley-colored ones. No end to the wickedness. This is why Satan is called the father of lies. Of all the sins, I think it all starts with a lie. Falsehood, deceit, corruption of the truth, and The world falls apart. The innocent suffer and the wicked prosper. All because of a lie. Remember back in the day back in the start of September, back after 9/11, 9/11/01, the the first thing the press started doing was calling the Muslims who committed the terrorist attack, started calling them. They weren't calling them radical Muslims or Muslim extremists. They were calling them Muslim fundamentalists. Don't know if you remember that. That was the phrase they used over and over and over again. Muslim fundamentalists. You see, they were trying to equate them with Christian fundamentalists, who were giving them all sorts of annoying headaches by not bending over and taking it. Now, they call them Muslim fundamentalists, and then somebody pointed out that by calling these terrorists Muslim fundamentalists, they were admitting that the terrorists were, in fact, practicing the fundamentals of Islam. And all of a sudden, whoa, Muslim extremists now. Muslim extremists, fringe group. Like the other 75% of the Muslim world that votes in favor of them. Oh yeah, look this up. The myth of the tiny Muslim, the myth of the Muslim minority, extremist minority. Let me pull it up here. Okay, let's see here. Acham. Excuse me. A little phlegmy. Come on, computer. Giddy up, up. Giddy up, up, giddy up. Ha ha. La 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 la. Come on. Stupid thing's lagging. Give me a minute. Okay. Let me turn this off for a minute. I'm Henry the Eighth. I am Henry the Eighth. I am. Bum 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 bum. Stop script. Probably a second. I know you can hear me. Because the way this feed works now, which I heartily approve of. Stupid thing. Alright. Give me a second. Okay, let me turn this off. Turning off Coffeetivity because it's apparently eating some bandwidth here. I'm trying to... I hate it when this happens. Come on, computer. You know, I have to say this as a side note. All the quibbling over trivial crap that the church does today, and the way I've looked at our society, what I've seen of our society, we are headed for a major collapse soon. Economic, financial, political. We've pushed it beyond the boundaries of sanity. Our current president, let's put this, our current president has literally pushed the national debt further than all the other presidents previous to him combined. That's not an exaggeration. He has literally he has literally pushed the national debt, doubled it. He has taken a national debt that took over 200 years to build and doubled it overnight. The man broke the $1 trillion mark. And he's cruising for hundreds of trillions as fast as he can go. That alone would be enough for any historian to look at and scream, "Oh, Lawsy, it gonna rain." And that's just one indicator of the collapse coming. But I'm looking at this, I'm thinking we are in for a time of tumult and upheaval, and we are going to see the church get taken through one incredible shakedown. It's like when the army goes into a time of war. You would be amazed at just how fast the frippery falls away. Let's see. Myth. Give me a second here. I'm going to have to stop the browser and restart. It's jammed. Be right back. Just give me a sec. Got to reboot it. All this time and I still can't seem to make anything work right. I need a bigger computer. That's just all there is to it. I don't know where I'm going to get it. I don't know if I can expand the memory or not. I think it's already maxed out. Oh well. Now, how many of you heard, "Oh, it's just a tiny radical Muslim minority"? Here, let's review. Liar. Okay, can we say that sums it up? No sound for the video? And darn it. Problems with the audio. I know what it is. And darn it. I have no idea what's wrong with the sound, but you can find it easily enough. The myth of the Muslim, radical Muslim minority. Well, that was a waste of time. But there you have it. We're doomed because we are living with so many people who are playing Let's Pretend. They, honest to God, believe that if they play pretend and make believe hard enough, that all these perils will go away. We'll just stop being there. We'll cease to exist. We'll have never been in the first place. Even while they watch on YouTube as they behead women and children and set men on fire. They want to pretend that everyone, right up to the president, they all the politicians are desperately playing Let's Pretend that they can continue running our economy the way they do, taxing us the way they do, spending the way they do, and looting us straight out of our pockets with fiat currency like they do, and that what they are pretending is not that this will go on forever, but that it will go on long enough for them to leave office. They figure that they're going to lose. They're going to leave office, and they'll have all their gravy set aside. They're figuring on abandoning ship and leaving us to sink with it. Everybody sneers at, you remember how disgusting people found the fact that the rich people on the top deck of the Titanic were abandoning ship and leaving all the poor people. Welcome to our government. Welcome to our system. But it's not the rich people that are doing it, but the powerful, the politicians, the bankers, the media elites who have been carefully feeding us a lie while this fairy tale goes on. And this is why I advise people, don't save your money as cash. Don't save your money in a bank. Don't invest it either. Save it as tools, property, commodity. Buy usable goods, stockpile, and not just beans, for crying out loud. And I'm not just talking canned food and shotguns here. I'm talking things like invest in yourself. Teach, if you can, take courses in everything you can. Your brain meats are your best investment. Learn first aid. Learn how to sew, how to cook, how to clean, how to repair electronics and small engines and household products, and learn how to recycle, learn how to innovate, learn all those life hacks that you see on it. Read them all, learn them all. They'll occur to you. You may not remember, but they'll occur to you when you need them. Learn to innovate. Learn to not depend upon a bankroll. Learn how to trade, learn how to barter, learn how to plant a garden. Buy a toolkit. Invest in your personal library. Get as many how-to and repair books as you can. This is my fantasy, an entire collection of the Four Dummies guides. And maybe the Complete Idiots guides, too. Yay. An entire library of just those. But if you can set money aside, buy fungible commodities like precious metals. No matter how much they... Go ahead and let them laugh, okay? There are all these educated... they're just too smart for gravity. You know what I'm saying? They're just so educated gravity won't pull their pants down, you know? They are not going... there isn't an economist on the planet who's going to outsmart 10,000 years of human history. Since the dawn of time, gold and silver have been valuable. Since the dawn of time, men have been trying all sorts of economic systems, all sorts of monetary systems, and thousands of variations on the fiat currency system, all of which have failed in short order. And again and again and again and again and again. Empires have collapsed. But their gold coins are still precious. Not because of the faces stamped on them, but because of the gold in them. I sometimes wonder if the reason that God is paved the streets of New Jerusalem with gold wasn't to show how worthless gold was. It was to illustrate to the world, to the material world, when he returns in the New Jerusalem, that his economy is based on truth rather than on playing pretend with pieces of paper. It's a radical thought that maybe God is, the point isn't just to show that, the point is not to show that gold is worthless. The point is to show that God's wealth is vast beyond measure, and that it's not based on illusions. But until the New Jerusalem returns, gold and silver are still going to be the fallback commodities of the human economy. Quite literally, an asteroid of solid gold and silver could land in the ocean. An asteroid of solid gold could land in the ocean, and one of solid silver could land on the other side of the planet. The price of gold would drop, but then it would stabilize again. It's that stable. Short of it raining gold nuggets 7 days a week, gold is not going to go away. So, of all the ways to save your money, either buy if you gold and silver. But if save up whatever silver or gold you lay your hands on. Invest as much of your money as you can in useful things. Like I said, tools, materials, commodities. The man who owns the last roll of toilet paper in town is going to rule the world. One of the things that survivalists advise, save up cans of coffee. Look, there are certain things that depend heavily on our international infrastructure just for their existence. Coffee, chocolate, those two in particular. When trade starts faltering, the price chocolate's already rising. The price of chocolate and coffee are already going up rapidly. So you figure if international trade goes toes up, man who has a few cans of cocoa or a few cans of Folgers stashed away is going to have something that he can barter with. Honey, as long as you keep it covered, honey will not spoil. You can literally, thousands of years, they've found samples of honey thousands of years old still edible. It doesn't spoil. Honey is useful as a sweetener. It's also highly nutritious, and it can be used to treat things like burns. It's antibiotic. Spices, that's another one. Consider that people risked their lives for the spice trade back in the Dark Ages. A little bit of salt. Salt is incredibly valuable. This is an interesting thing. I learned this. I learned some interesting things while studying stuff for writing Tales of the Questor. One of the things I looked up was soap. Well, first of all, I looked up the fact the portrayal of people in the Dark Ages as in the medieval period as being unbathed is incorrect. Bathhouses were quite common. It was during the Renaissance when a bunch of intellectuals got it in their head that bathing opened the pores to disease that bathing became unpopular. Up until that point, a bathhouse was a standard fixture in any household. Any lord's manor would have a steam room or a bathhouse, and their communities generally had bathhouses, communal bathing. They also had soap, quite great amounts of it. Soap is made by basically running dripping water through hardwood ash. The liquid that runs through the ash is lye. The lye is then dripped into animal fat, and it turns it into soap. The thing of it is that it's a liquid soap. You have to add salt to the soap to make it form bars. You see, back in the settlement, all the way up until the days of the pioneer days in America, bar soap was a luxury. Liquid soap, soft soap, was the most common form of soap the people had. Lye soap. Because salt was more valuable for curing meat than for making soap. As salt production technology improved, eventually more and more bar soap became common. Medicines, like bandages, band-aids, aspirins, non-aspirin pain relievers. whatever you can get your meat hooks on. Oh, yes. That's where the word salary comes from. Salt. That's what it means to be worth your salt, as an old saying. We are going to lose a great many things because we will lose, because when the electric system goes, we have not advanced to the point where we are decentralized. Now, the internet has been so stable. Think about it. If you think of the internet as a single device, as a single artifact, the internet has been running since its inception without stopping, without breaking down, for literally decades now, since the 1990s. For almost 30 years now. That's an impressive achievement. And that's due to its design. It's decentralized, and it's a network rather than a centralized system, like many of the older advocates of computer technology envisioned. And for some reason, engineers have this unfortunate tendency to visualize, terrible grasp of society. They tend to visualize everything. Oh, it'll be run from the top down. They picture, I remember looking in the 60s, they showed pictures of what they pictured the roads of the future to be like. You won't need to drive because your car will be centrally controlled from an office somewhere in the city, Engineers have a great grasp of the material universe, but a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature. And they also have a fundamental misunderstanding of the fragility of centralized systems versus the robust nature of decentralized networks. But anyway, we could, but if our electrical system, our power grid, is still, it's grossly outdated. It still depends largely on centralized locations. It depends on power plants. Rather than having each house capable of supplementing its own power supply. It's one of the biggest shortcomings we have. It used to be that every house had its own fireplace, as it were. But every house had its own fireplace. Out in the frontier, every house had its own windmill. But we chose a simpler system that was far more fragile. If we don't come up with a solution to that very soon, we are going to be hurting for it. There are many companies out there that are trying to sell gas and electric, gas and oil-powered home generators. That still brings back the shortcoming that they depend on the centralized distribution of fuel. We're going to need to stretch our brains in whole new directions to solve the electrical energy problem. Okay, I'm going to be right back in just a minute. Be right back. So sorry it took so long getting back. Whew. Okay. Okay. Okay, it is getting late, and I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. Didn't get much drawing done tonight, I'm afraid. A little bit, not much, but keep chugging along, I guess. I will see you all Monday night. And we'll pick up where we left off here. Only one fading fast. So I'll see you all tomorrow, Monday. Try and get some stuff done. Legitimate, get things taken care of. You all take care of yourselves. Say a prayer for me if you can, because Lord knows I need them. And have yourselves a good night.